All right, so have you ever actually sat down and tried to picture the entire universe? Like heaven, hell, earth, all of it?
Ambitious, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what we're diving into today with John Milton's Paradise Lost.
Oh, a classic.
Right. Specifically, we're tackling book 3 today, and I know. Epic poetry from the 1600s. Maybe not everyone's cup of tea.
It can be daunting, but that's where we come in.
Exactly, because this isn't about dry analysis or anything like that. It's about this blind poet, Milton, creating these insanely vivid descriptions of, well, the cosmos, basically.
It really is mind-blowing when you think about it. How do you describe the universe when you've never seen it?
That's the hook. How does he do it? And more importantly, what can we learn from it, even centuries later?
What's fascinating to me is how Milton uses language to kind of overcome that limitation, you know? He doesn't just tell you about heaven, for example. He makes you feel the texture of its diamond gates, almost hear the echoes of angelic songs.
You're totally right. It's a sensory experience, and that's what makes it so accessible even today.
Exactly.
Okay, so quick recap for anyone who maybe slept through high school English. Paradise Lost is the story of Satan. He's been kicked out of heaven, and now he's basically on a mission to get back at God, even if it means corrupting humanity. Book 3 is where things get super interesting, because it's not just about what happens, but how Milton makes us see and feel this epic showdown.
You said it. It's that vivid imagery that really sets Milton apart. Take, for instance, his description of Heaven's Gate. He calls it a frontispiece of diamond and gold, thick with sparkling orient gems.
Hold on, Diamond Gates. That's next level.
Right. This isn't your average pearly gates imagery. Milton throws in diamonds, jewels, the whole shebang. He's creating this image of magnificence that just sticks with you.
It's like he's saying, limitations, watch this. But it's not just the visual stuff either, right?
Oh, absolutely not. He talks about the music of heaven, these hymns and chants echoing around God's throne. You can practically hear it, even all these centuries later.
That's wild.
Totally. And that's where the real genius of Milton comes in. He could have just given us this, play-by-play of angels and demons, but he doesn't. He makes us active participants in this universe he's created.
So we've talked about heaven all sparkly and epic, but book 3 also dives into this really intense conversation between God and the Son, and it's about, you guessed it, us, humanity's fate. And this is where things get, well, philosophically deep.
Yeah, this isn't just some theological debate tucked away in an old book. It's a timeless exploration of free will versus destiny, you know? God knows Adam and Eve are going to mess up, that's a given,
Right.
but he still emphasizes their ability to choose.
It's like he created them knowing they might break his heart.
It's a powerful concept, right?
Okay, but wait. If God already knows the ending, is it really free will? That always trips me up.
The million-dollar question,
Yep.
right? It's a debate that's still raging today, centuries later. But Milton, through God, he argues that true love and obedience, that can't be forced.
That makes sense.
Think about it. If your best friend was programmed to agree with everything you said,
That's not a real friendship.
exactly. Real relationships require that freedom to choose, even if the choice leads to heartbreak.
Mind blown. It's like Milton is making us confront that tension in our own lives. Do we really have control, or are we just, playing out a script?
And that's the brilliance of Paradise Lost. For you, it's not about giving you easy answers. It's about asking these huge questions that have resonated throughout history.
Okay, so we've got God and the Son having this super heavy philosophical debate about the fate of humanity. But then the Son does something totally unexpected.
He does something incredible. He volunteers to become human, to sacrifice himself for the sins of mankind. And Milton describes it. He says, love nowhere to be found less than divine.
Wow. Even the angels are blown away by this, right? It's like the ultimate act of love, the ultimate sacrifice, something that goes way beyond just religion and speaks to something deeply human.
You're so right. This theme of sacrifice for something bigger than yourself, it pops up in stories across every culture and time period.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there's always a possibility, a potential for hope and for redemption.
Okay, so we've got God, this infinite wisdom, the Son, this cosmic selflessness. But what about the bad guy? Where does Satan fit into all of this?
Well, in Book 3, Satan's journey, it takes him from hell, which you'd expect, but then to a really unexpected pit stop,
Uh,
the sun. And he's not just passing through either, he's actually impressed by its power, even comparing it to the light of heaven.
that's so weird, right? Why is Satan taking a minute to admire the sun while he's plotting against heaven? It's like complimenting your enemy's outfit right before you challenge them to a duel or something.
What's interesting here is that Milton actually wants us to see the world through Satan's eyes. at least for this part of the story. He's forcing the reader to, like, actually confront a perspective that's both compelling and really unsettling at the same time.
Okay, that makes sense. But is Milton trying to make us sympathize with the devil here? Because I'm pretty sure we're not supposed to be rooting for the guy who wants to ruin everything.
No, not at all. It's not about agreeing with Satan's actions. It's more about understanding that he's complex. Remember, this is a fallen angel, but he was an angel. He was capable of recognizing beauty, even as he was at the same time being consumed by all this darkness. Think about it. Haven't there been times in your own life where you've struggled with, like, totally opposite emotions, good and bad, all at once?
For sure.
A human experience, even for a fallen angel.
So it's about nuance, right? Seeing those shades of gray in a character who could have easily just been, 100% evil.
Exactly. Milton challenges us to look deeper, beyond just good guy, bad guy, and to think about the fact that even in the darkest, darkest places, there can still be flickers of light.
So how does that play out here? Satan's done with his little solar sightseeing tour. What happens next? How does he even find Adam and Eve in this whole brand new world God created?
This is where Milton introduces another one of his super striking images, a cosmic staircase. It connects heaven and earth.
Wait a minute, a staircase, like a literal staircase between heaven and earth.
He describes it as a structure high with stairs that are, get this, sometimes visible and sometimes not. Now remember, people back then, they totally believed in a physical heaven, like it was a real place you could point to.
Right, up above us somewhere.
Exactly. But even beyond just reading it literally, this staircase is a symbol. It's the connection, this link between, like, the divine and the earthly.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
And for Satan, right, it's this painful reminder of everything he's lost.
It's like he's looking up at this window into a world he can't be a part of anymore.
Exactly. It's that back and forth, that push and pull between beauty and this, like, deep corruption that makes Paradise Lost so captivating. It's something we still wrestle with today, that desire for what we've lost, the struggle to find our place in a world full of beauty and pain all at the same time.
So no way back into heaven, but he's got a way to get down to earth now, right? Does he use this celestial staircase to reach Adam and Eve?
He does. But instead of just, like, marching straight to paradise and immediately going all scorched earth on everyone, he actually hesitates for a second.
Really?
Yeah, he lands on a mountaintop, and Milton describes how he's kind of struck by the beauty of everything God's created. Imagine that this is the fallen angel, blown away by the very world he's about to try to destroy. It's a fascinating contradiction, don't you think?
Totally. It reminds me of that saying, sometimes the devil comes as a roaring lion, and sometimes as an angel of light.
Boom. Exactly. That's what makes Satan such a complex, even relatable villain, I think.
How so?
He can appreciate beauty, genuinely appreciate it, but he's still driven by all this envy and this thirst for revenge.
So it's that inner turmoil, that conflict, that makes him so interesting, so human. Okay, so what's next for Satan? He's had his little moment, his moment. Now what? Does he put his master plan into action?
He does, but first he spent some time watching Adam and Eve, learning about them, figuring out what makes them tick, what their weaknesses are.
So he's not just some brute force of evil, he's got a strategy, he's calculating.
He is. He's methodical and honestly more than a little creepy.
Okay, yeah, I'm getting some serious stalker vibes here. And knowing how this all ends up for Adam and Eve, it's creating this incredible tension. I feel like that's totally what Milton was going for.
Oh, absolutely. Milton is a master at building suspense.
Yeah.
We know the ending of the story, right? I mean, Paradise Lost, not paradise. We'll see what happens.
Right.
But he still keeps us on the edge of our seats. It's like watching a train wreck in slow motion. You can see it coming, but you can't look away.
It's in those moments that you realize how powerful Paradise Lost really is. Milton's not just telling us a story, he's pulling us into it, making us feel the weight of every choice, every action.
Absolutely.
But before we jump into the nitty-gritty of Satan's scheme, there's one more crucial thing we have to go back to in Book 3. That conversation between God and the Son about humanity's fate, free will, predestination.
Right.
We've got to unpack that more. That whole conversation between God and the Son, it's where Paradise Lost gets seriously philosophical, right? We're talking free will. Are we just puppets on strings? Is it all preordained? The big questions.
Yeah, heavy stuff, no doubt.
Yeah.
But that's Milton for you. He doesn't shy away from those tough ideas, does he? He jumps right into the deep end, exploring the core of God's relationship with us humans.
And it's confusing. God knows everything that's going to happen, right? He knows Adam and Eve are going to make a mess of things. But he still creates them with free will. Like, how does that even compute?
Right. It's a question that's kept theologians and philosophers up at night for centuries.
Hmm.
If God's got the whole script written out,
Mm.
how can our choices actually be free? That's one of those great paradoxes. But the way Milton writes God, it seems like he's saying that real love, true obedience, it can't be forced. It has to be a choice.
Otherwise, it's meaningless, right?
Exactly. Think about it. Imagine if you could create, like build from scratch, a being who would love you no matter what, guaranteed. Part of you might be like, sign me up.
Sure. Who wouldn't want that?
But deep down, wouldn't that feel kind of hollow?
Like winning a game that's already rigged in your favor, what's even the point?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what Milton's getting at here. That's not the kind of relationship God wants. He wants a real connection, even if it means we might screw up, we might choose the wrong path. He's taking a chance on us.
Talk about a leap of faith. Knowing your creation might reject you, that's a pretty intense thought.
It really is.
But where does that leave us? If we're bound to mess up, are we doomed from the start?
That's where the son's sacrifice comes in. Remember that moment, how unexpected it was? He volunteers to become one of us, to walk in our shoes, face our temptations.
And ultimately, to pay the price for our mistakes.
Exactly. And Milton doesn't hold back. He describes this act as love nowhere to be found less than divine. That's some powerful stuff.
It's an image that has stuck with people for centuries, right? The idea of someone willingly sacrificing themselves for the greater good, even for people who might not deserve it.
Yeah, it's a universal idea. Think about the stories we tell, the heroes we look up to so often. It's the people who are willing to give everything, risk their own well-being for others that really inspire us.
It's incredible. Makes you think about what drives someone to be so selfless, so compassionate.
Maybe that's a question we all have to find our own answer to. But for Milton, I think he'd say it's a part of that divine spark we all carry, that capacity for love and empathy that connects us all.
A powerful message, especially coming from a story that deals with so much darkness, so much complexity. So we've seen heaven, we've peeked into hell, and we've witnessed this battle between good and evil. As we're wrapping up our deep dive on Book 3 of Paradise Lost, what's the one thing you'd want our listeners to walk away with?
I think it's that even in a story written hundreds of years ago, we can still find pieces of ourselves, our struggles, our search for meaning. It's all reflected back at us. Milton's Paradise Lost, it's not just some old story about humanity messing up. It's a timeless exploration of what it means to be human, period. It's a reminder that even when things are tough, there's always hope, always a chance for redemption, and always, always the power to choose our own path.
So well said. And on that note, we'll leave you to keep pondering these timeless questions. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those big questions, and keep diving deep into these amazing stories and ideas that shape our world.